The Nokia 3.1 Plus has a larger screen, updated hardware and plenty of improved design touches which should help it feel fresh in a very saturated market. We're reviewing the variant with 3GB of RAM and 32GB of storage, which is priced at 11,499 rupees in India. Let's get started. A lot of people buy phones online without ever touching or feeling them, but you have to get your hands on a Nokia 3.1 Plus unit to understand how solid and immediately reassuring it feels. The body is all aluminum except for the glass front and plastic caps at the top and bottom of the rear. The sides of the body are rounded and the corners are curved so that this phone is always comfortable in the hand. The aluminum rear shell has a non-slippery soft touch texture which makes handling this phone really easy. It resists fingerprints, but we did see smudges and scuffs after a few days of casual use. Unlike the Nokia 3.1 which has bold contrasting metal accents, the 3.1 Plus only has silver trims around the camera bump and fingerprint sensor on the back. At 180 grams and 8.2mm thick, this phone is definitely on the bulkier side, but most people will find it manageable. The only negatives we found were that the seams between the metal and plastic didn't meet perfectly, and the SIM trays on the left didn't fit into the body very cleanly. The trays in particular have rough, unfinished looking edges where specks of dust seem to collect almost immediately. One of the trays on the left can seat SIM 1 plus a micro SD card, and the second tray is for SIM 2. 4G and VoLTE are supported on both SIMs at the same time. The Nokia 3.1 Plus goes up against the Xiaomi Redmi 6 Pro and the Asus ZenFone Max Pro M1. However, HMD Global has gone with a relatively pokey processor, the MediaTek Helio P22, which we last saw in the entry-level Xiaomi Redmi 6. The main attraction here is the 18:9 6-inch screen. The HD Plus 1440 by 720 pixel resolution might not seem like a lot at this size, but we found it to be comfortable. The screen is nice and bright, and we didn't have trouble outdoors. The large screen makes content look good, and the relatively low resolution isn't a problem because you don't need to hold this phone up close to your face. The single speaker is pretty loud and the sound is quite rich and deep, but it does distort at high volumes. Our review unit was running Android 8.1 with the August 2018 security patch, and we can confidently expect an upgrade to Android 9 in the near future. The only non-standard apps were Google's own Files Go and Google Pay and the necessary FM radio app. If you want face recognition, you'll have to dig through the security settings to find the native Android Trusted Face feature. As stated before, we didn't have much trouble with the stock Android UI and basic usage didn't feel sluggish. There were some stutters when browsing through the Play Store and switching between heavy games and apps. To call the Nokia 3.1 Plus's benchmark scores weak would be an understatement. We were pleasantly surprised that Dead Trigger 2 ran smoothly, though levels took a while to load. On the other hand, the new Asphalt 9 Legends was too choppy and simply froze after a point. Thanks to the large body, there's a 3500 mAh battery. With casual usage, including some gaming and video streaming over the course of a working day, the battery level dipped by only around 60%. In our HD video loop test, the Nokia 3.1 Plus lasted for a staggering 17 hours 13 minutes. We have no doubt that a lot of users will be able to stretch to 2 days of usage per charge. The 13-megapixel f2.0 main rear camera on the rear is joined by a 5-megapixel f2.4 depth sensor. There's also an 8-megapixel f2.2 front camera. The cameras on the Nokia 3.1 Plus are just about okay. The app has a live bokeh mode and lets you adjust the intensity of the depth effect. The manual mode only gives you options for focus, white balance and exposure compensation, and the controls aren't fine-grained either. For video, there are separate time-lapse and slow-motion modes. We noticed severe shutter lag even in broad daylight, possibly due to HDR being set to automatic by default. This made taking photos a little frustrating. In most cases, quality was decent but not exciting. Detail suffers if you aren't focusing on a subject at close range, for example when taking shots of a landscape. Even with macros, fine details didn't come out very well and natural textures were lost. We had a little trouble with overexposure in bright parts of the frame. The bokeh effect was pretty good, but sometimes we noticed issues with edge detection. At night, photos came out with a lot of grain and even objects directly under a street lamp came out looking poorly defined. Video is recorded at 1080p with both the front and rear cameras by default. It's definitely shaky and there's a lot of focus hunting when anything in the frame moves. The quality is just about okay for casual use, but if you care about preserving memories, this isn't the phone for you. Selfies are also just okay. One very neat touch is that the screen flash at night has an amber tint and increases in brightness gradually, so you aren't blinded and skin tones aren't blown out. The Nokia 3.1 Plus is not the most competitive phone at its price level, not by a long shot. No matter how good it looks on the outside, it's hard to ignore just how much smoother the usage experience is with other models. What it does offer is a large screen and incredible battery life, which means that this phone could be a good choice for those who love watching movies or TV shows and don't care about gaming. If you think that sums up your needs and you really like the style of this phone, both hardware and software, then you can go for it. On the other hand, if you can live with a less impressive battery, the Asus ZenFone Max Pro M1 looks somewhat similar, has a screen that's just as large, and is a far better all-rounder at a lower price. Thanks for watching, and for more reviews and videos like this, do check out gadgets360.com.